Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Stack Conference. So this year is actually the biggest ever Stack Conference with almost 2,000 of you here, both in person as well as online. SMS just mentioned about the Stack Conference being very special because it is actually run by the government for developers, so I won't really talk too much about it. But actually, we actually did a search on the internet and tried to find conferences that has been led by government for developers. Actually, so far, we haven't really found any. Maybe there's something out there, but if you find any, please let us know. Then maybe the next one, we won't make this claim anymore. So this year, our theme is on developer productivity. We put a nice long name, digital engineering productivity, but at the end of the day, it's all about developers, right? All about software developers like you. And we hope to be able to give more information and basically share more of what we've been doing within our engineering community to everyone so that we can all learn together. So we have prepared a number of sessions today and tomorrow around this topic, and I hope you actually have a great 2 days. So let me kickstart on this by sharing a picture where actually I had more black hair than. This is 2018, our first Stack conference. And for those of you who were here then, you might have heard my talk at that point in time. Smaller conference, this is much more massive, actually. And this is the panel that I was in. And I have a bit of a sense of deja vu because I'll be in a panel again later. Different people, but yeah, so that was then. In 2018, where we had our first conference, we actually made a number of very exciting announcements. And one of the key announcements was about government using the cloud. Right? I was actually very excited sitting in front after that, before I actually went up to give a talk, to hear the then Prime Minister talk about a government actually moving out to the cloud. And that's a brief 6 years since, and I have actually joined GovTech itself. And right now, I see the massive the massive things that we have done since then. So I just want to share a little bit of what we have done. What we set out in 2018, we eventually started up something called Government on Commercial Cloud. In 2019, we launched GCC 1.0, and 2 years ago, we launched the second version, GCC 2.0. We also launched GCC Plus last year for confidential systems. So there's a lot of activity since then. But the amount of improvements we have made, it's actually quite astounding. I think today we have about 80% of eligible government systems already migrated to GCC. And I have spoken to a number of my peers from other countries, and many have told me this is one of the most successful cloud migrations in government around the world. So I think for the GCC team, congratulations and well done. So in 2018, cloud was the big thing, right? There was no doubt about it, at least those in the crowd, that we knew cloud was the way to forward, and so we forged ahead. Today, I see parallels again, and again, like I said, deja vu, I'm on the stage again, I'm talking about very similar things. But for the developers in the room, which I believe is most of you, we all know that software development, the work that we do, is not going to be the same again. Right? As an industry, we frequently go through various cycles, going up and down, and swinging pendulum left and right. And many of these cycles are often more hype than reality. But this time, it's quite different. Right? We might joke about it a lot. I think whenever we talk about, okay, he's going to talk about AI again. Right? But the reality is this has changed and is continuing to change what we do. So some of it can be pretty scary because we are talking about people who are questioning that should we even learn to code anymore because AI is able to do so many of these things. are we losing our jobs, right? I think that is on top of many people's minds, at least people out in the industry is like, hey, I no longer need software engineers. Even the Amazon Cloud CEO, he was predicting that AI is going to do all the work for software engineers, and most of us are going to be out of a job. But on the other hand, there are also people who think, no, AI is not going to replace software engineers, and of all people, it's Gartner, right? So apologize for anyone from Gartner in the crowd. But actually, Gartner did say that AI will not replace software engineers, and in fact, we might even need more. Sorry, I didn't press the button. Yeah. And there are many even more people who say this, like, for example, Bill Gates and Sundar Pichai thinks AI won't be replacing software engineers. But generally, everyone thinks and agrees that things are not going to be the same. But those are the people outside of the industry and not exactly doing the work that we're doing. So what do software engineers actually think? What do software developers actually think? So as usual, software engineers, we always turn to StackOverflow. And StackOverflow developers surveyed the results which came out recently. It did a survey to 65,000 developers from 185 countries around the world. And out of that, it discovered that 68% don't think AI tools are a threat. 72% are favorable or very favorable. And 76% are already using or will very soon be using AI tools. So actually, we are all very positive about it, right? So despite all the doom and gloom that's been said in the industry, actually, we are quite chill about doing this. And I think that says something about what we are using. But before that, I talk a little bit further. Let me try to rewind a little bit about how we actually ended up in this state. Yeah. By the way, I actually owned one of these at one point in time. So coding assistants started way back initially as spell checkers, right? As the humble spell checker. But if you think about it carefully, actually it makes a lot of sense because spell checkers detect if a word is spelled correctly. And if it's not, basically it provides a list of potential correct spellings for you to choose from, right? And this is very similar to code completion. Yeah. So actually, the history of how we came to AI coding assistants actually came from spell checkers. And in the actual coding assistant, the code completion started with IntelliSense. Not sure whether people actually remember or know about this term, IntelliSense. But it's actually very pervasive. If you have actually used any IDEs today, you are already using it, and you're not very sure. Let me show you exactly what this is. Right? So if you type something, window pops out to say these are the choices. Well, that's IntelliSense. Of course, other IDEs have adopted very similar things, and they might be using different technology because IntelliSense was a Microsoft technology. But nonetheless, code completion, in the sense of being able to complete things that you first started typing, it is very, very pervasive today. And over time, this evolution of code completion also started adopted AI, right, in a different form. In 2013, there was a company called Codota, who eventually renamed itself to be called Tab9. There was one of the very first AI-powered code completion IDEs. And then came after a whole slew of them, Kite. Both Tab9 and Kite are very much more focused on Python when it first came out. But eventually, of course, they adopted others. Deep Code today was bought by Snake. And in 2018, Microsoft came out with IntelliCode, which is embedded into Visual Studio. So the code completion and the AI code assistants, which started from spell checker and then evolved to these that I put on the screen today, has been evolving even way before sort of like the AI thing blew up. But in 2021, things really blew up when GitHub Copilot came out. And when I first tried it, I was totally blown away. It was amazing. They brought the AI code assistance to the next level using OpenAI's Codex, which was based on GPT-3. And that really caught the imagination of the entire industry, right? I'm sure many of you started using it and then was like, wow, this is the best thing ever. But there was more to come. The following year, in 2022, end of 2022, actually it's exactly 2 years ago, ChatGPT came out. And the same experience that many of us had with Copilot actually extended over to everybody else. Right? And this AI-powered chatbots were the craze starting then, and then a lot more others came about. But actually, while the AI chatbot was not originally created for coding, it's actually very, very useful for to help developers develop as well, right? Debug and things like that. So that became a big thing. Of course, inevitably, both of these worlds combine, right, converge. So the IDEs with the code completion eventually combined with the chatbots, and again, there were a whole slew of tools, like the ones I'm showing here. They are mostly the IDE extensions, but they also include chatbots as well. Right. And this is where we are today. We have IDEs with code completion and chatbots. We have pure chatbots. And then we have all the new stuff that has come out. I put a whole bunch of it today, which are a little bit more popular. Cursor, in particular, is one that I really like using. All Hands is an agent-based coding assistant. Continue is a open source coding assistant. CodeGPT, GitLab Duo, Replit, and V0 are very interesting ones because they combine the entire ecosystem into one. So you start to see the coding assistants have evolved away from just code completion to actually encompass the entire environment. So V0 is by Vercel, and those of you who know what Vercel is realize that, wow, if you combine a code assistant together with the power of Vercel, kaboom, magic happens. And sure enough, if you try some of these, you'll be truly amazed. The ones at the bottom I put in a gray bar, it's primarily because they are not generally available, but they are also very interesting ones. For example, Augment. We actually, a bunch of us actually went over to talk to Augment, I think earlier part of this year. And they are really a unicorn, right? They have so much money going in, and they haven't even launched a product yet. So you can see the space is really exploding. So, question is, which one is the most popular? What is the most popular one? And those of you who are here, which coding assistant do you use? Which one do you think is the most popular? Cursor? Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, very shy, but first talk, or second talk, I guess is okay. Actually, unfortunately, Cursor is not on the list. Okay. The most popular one is ChatGPT, right? Everyone loves ChatGPT, including developers. 82% of the 46,000 people who responded to this question actually use ChatGPT. And a second is actually by a far, very far off, is actually GitHub Copilot. Obviously, ChatGPT is free and Copilot is not, so obviously there's a difference. But nonetheless, it's quite telling that the chatbot is very, very popular. So that is really about using AI coding assistance on your own. But if you are trying to use it in the enterprise, trying to use it in the company, it's actually a whole new ballgame altogether. It's very, very different. And I'll spend the next few slides trying to talk a little bit about it. So what do enterprises want, right? What is most important for enterprises when deploying AI coding assistance? So I put it to three things. It is value, security, and compliance, okay? And I'll talk through some of these things. So the first is value. So obviously the first is value, because in enterprises and company, it must be about value, because we are talking about large numbers and potentially a lot of money. And if you're spending a lot of money, then you must be getting something back in return, right? So that goes without saying. So in the market, a lot of research surveys has been done, and the claim is that it is able to deliver work 50% faster, right? There are a lot of papers have done that. I've done a bit of research on this, and that's a lot of people say 50%. Of course, a lot of people say different numbers as well. But I think I try to condense it to 50%. But what does that really mean? What kind of work are we talking about? We are talking about all kinds, right? Not just the code generation, which I think a lot of people are thinking about, not just about auto-completion, but also about doing bug fixing, code refactoring, generating unit test cases, helping people to learn, and automating deployments. So a whole slew of things. So a lot of things are good, but is it really generating the value? And I think for those people who are super enthusiastic about it, or hyped up about it, the answer is obviously yes. But if you ask the CEO of a company, if you ask the enterprise of a company, so obviously it's like, okay, great, right? 50% work. Can I take back 50% of the budget? I don't think anyone would say yes, right? I wouldn't say yes, by the way. So then why not, right? Why not if you claim that you can have 50%, and if everybody claims 50%, then why can't I do it? So one of the things that we often talk about is like, actually, how much time does a developer spend on coding? Again, plenty of research on this, and there's actually a talk today, I think, about some of these things. And this is today's this conference is about developer productivity, right? So you hear a lot more about this thing. We spend a lot of time actually doing many other things, which is not directly coding, which is fair enough, because our job is not just coding, right? And so we need to be careful when we say 50% faster. What does it really mean? But actually, we do so many other things that we need to be careful about. And of course, despite all the hype and all the things that it can do, actually AI coding assistants bring other issues along with it. Like, it can do things really quickly, but what it produces, is it good enough? Is it high quality, right? And there are many issues which I wouldn't dwell on today, but rest assured that things are not as simple as what it is. So, in other words, and this is really my point, is when we message back to others, to our stakeholders, to whoever it is that we talk to, we need to really figure out what really means to our organization, what really means to our enterprise, and we need to provide the correct message to our stakeholders beyond the hype. Right? I think that's very important. The second point, it's about security. So, I mean, this is an IDE. How much more secure do we need to be, right? We are already using IDEs today, so is security really so critical? But actually, this is more than just an IDE, and there's more than code to secure. So imagine if you are using AI coding assistant, and you start to use it massively, and there's a leakage. Your competitors know where you're heading, what kind of products you're developing, potentially. Then there's a lot more to lose, right? Your stack traces, error messages, and so on. When it goes out, if it ever goes out, then you have a lot of problems with PII data and so on and so forth, configuration and so on, and of course, bugs and exploits. The horror story is, what if your coding assistant actually turns against you, is compromised, and injects an exploit in your code? Right. Very scary. I'm not sure it should be the second talk of the day to talk about these scary things, but we really need to think about it and talk about it, and really try to figure out some of these answers, like where can it be hosted? Right? Because AI coding assistants today, at least, are mostly hosted somewhere else, right? Not locally. So what kind of coding assistants will you use? What kind of coding assistants would be suitable for your company? fully SaaS types, what kind of LLMs you want to use. Do you want to use cloud LLMs? Do you want to use local models? Do you want it on-premise? So many questions to answer. What kind of data do you want to use with it? Like what kind of security classification your data would be? What kind of sensitivity classification it would be? Would there be IP restrictions? What kind of applications you want to develop with this? That CII, SII, is it systems that you operate with? And therefore, if something goes wrong, then it could be disastrous for your business or for your operations. So many different things. But the main point that I want to raise up is you need to start thinking about this if you are really looking at implementing this. Now, finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about compliance. Of course, this is a government conference. It's always about compliance. No, it's not about compliance. No, just kidding. You might think this is about paperwork and red tape, but in any enterprise, this is really bread and butter. Audit is very real, and it has really serious consequences. Why? Because we live in the real world. Right? So you need to think about what you need to do in order to comply to whatever things that you need to comply in order to use your coding assistants. For example, if you are in a regulated industry like finance, like healthcare, like government, you really need to think about this because there are potentially rules that come out to prevent you from using it. What you can use, what you can't use, right? You might not think that, hey, but this is an IDE that I'm using. But in reality, this is also AI. This also goes out to the cloud. So the worlds are converging and mixing up. And therefore, unfortunately, you need to think about some of these things. IP issues are also not trivial. And you really need to be very clear about what you can or you can't use because some of these things will potentially trip you at a later point in time, right? Fortunately, this particular lawsuit was thrown out of court, but it could come back again, or there could be other lawsuits, and it could really cause issues for you, right? And finally, your current policies might not be compatible for using this, and it might not be compatible for various reasons. So you might want to think about your activities, the actions you want to take to maybe adjust the kind of deployment you have for your AI coding assistants, or even work with people to change your policies. Maybe the policies were in the days like of old, and now with the new world, you want to actually adjust your policies. So that's something that you need to think about. I spoke about a lot of these things, and that actually even applies for government especially, right? So in order to understand them better, which we don't before this, we ran a pilot, right? We try to use AI assistants ourselves. And of course, the first focus that we have is about value, because everything else is meaningless if you're not able to show the value. And in our developer productivity work, we are using the SPACE framework, which you will hear a lot about in the next 2 days, right? Of course, the team is developer productivity, so SPACE framework is a very popular framework besides Dora. And this is something that another speaker will be talking about as well, Abhinoda. And specifically for this pilot, which I will just give a bit of a flavor of this, Liana will be talking about much more in her session. So please watch out for that. So the SPACE framework is about being able to determine whether, how productive your developers are, how productive our developers can be by fulfilling these few things. And we ran this we actually ran this pilot. This is the profile of our pilot. We have 70 participants. We ran it over 4 months from October 23 to January this year using Copilot and GitHub Duo because GitLab Duo because GitLab users. We only apply this for official close and non-sensitive documents and data. And this is the profile of our participants. Right? And the results came out pretty well. as I mentioned earlier, Liana will be talking more in details about this, but the TLDR is that we discovered that AI coding assistant we use, basically Copilot and GitLab Duo, really brought value to our development processes and on average improved 24% productivity, right? So that's the number that we came out with. In fact, the team wrote a paper about this and published about our results. So please do read up about it and please attend the other session as well. And here's our journey so far. After the pilot, we have shown our stakeholders the value. We have talked about this, and we are actually moving in the full program to launch tools to the larger development community in GovTech, and later, hopefully, the whole of government. We are right in smack here today, November. We have done a number of things since then, like we have assessed a number of other tools, and we've looked at Codium in particular, where we have launched Codium internally, the SaaS version of Codium, and in the next couple of months, we'll be launching the self-hosted version of Codium to solve some of these problems about hosting on the cloud. And we have also done some reviewing on our policies to see whether we can actually use a different kind of hosting, and we have successfully made some changes to our policies as well, and adopted and adapted our deployments as well. And the thing is, at this point in time, a lot of these things are still very much unknown. It's really a journey, and the journey is still quite hazy. Right? It's still not very clear. And this, I think, can be a bit scary, but at the same time, this is what we live and breathe. So I personally find it really exciting, and I can't wait to see how much more further we can go. Right? So with this, I thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, today and tomorrow. Thank you.